Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. It's Peter Hutchinson from Cambridge. I'm going to do this without the video because the internet connection may not be so reliable. So can everybody see the first slide?
Yes, we can see that.
Perfect. Okay,
Yeah.
So here, thank you for organising this webinar. Fantastic. So following on from Professor Servaday, I'm going to provide an update on the work of the NIHR Global Health Research Group on Neurotrauma. So as we know, brain trauma is a pathway for a patient from the scene of an accident through emergency hospital care, operations, intensive care, rehabilitation and reintegration into the community, and is the commonest cause of death under the age of 40 years in high-income countries. But what we're now increasingly aware of, that this is actually a very big problem in the low and middle income countries, who experience nearly 3 times more cases of traumatic brain injury than the high income countries. In fact, increasing incidence of one of the major causes of traumatic brain injury, road injury, is now the 8th commonest cause of death globally, and trauma causes 5 million deaths per day on the planet, equivalent to 14,000 deaths per day globally. And by 2030, it is thought that road injury deaths will rise to the 5th commonest cause of death globally. We tend to focus very much on the treatment of traumatic brain injury, but actually, to make a big impact, we probably need to focus more on prevention. This is Lawrence of Arabia, who died in 1934 on his motorcycle. And then to the right, we have Sir Hugh Cairns, who introduced motorcycle helmets during the Second World War. And that's made a big difference in the high-income countries, but there are still many countries in the world where helmets are not worn. If we look at outcome from severe head injury, what kills people is hypoxia and hypotension. And if we're going to really make an impact in terms of the treatment, I think we need to begin by addressing these issues in addition to neurosurgical intervention. So ensuring that oxygen and a good blood pressure is delivered to the patients. And that needs to begin very early at the scene of the incident, and particularly in terms of pre-hospital care. And there's been a very encouraging and interesting initiative from India, where the National Highways Authority will soon deploy an ambulance, a highway patrol vehicle, and a crane every 50 kilometers across their network in order to get medical care to road traffic accident victims more quickly. So that leads us on to the Global Health Research Group on Neurotrauma. So the UK government have signed up to 0.7% of national expenditure on official development or overseas development assistance, the ODA. And much of this money is being spent through the National Institute for Health Research. That is the research branch of the National Health Service. So in 2017, we established with the NIHR the Global Health Research Group on Neurotrauma. It was launched in Cambridge, and the website there is neurotrauma.world. And we argued for the creation of the group on the basis that traumatic injury is increasing worldwide, with the greatest increase in low and middle income countries, and neurological injury is one of the most catastrophic, and good quality care is complex. And there is an argument that improvements in care need to be supported by high quality data. So the group has a number of international partners who are involved in the original application, but an increasing number of other partners through the GENOS study. And in particular, collaboration with supporting organizations, so the WFNS, many international organizations, and most recently with WHO. The group has 4 themes. Theme 1, mapping traumatic brain injury care. 2 is understanding traumatic brain injury care. 3 is innovation in traumatic brain injury care. And 4 is building research capacity. The GENOS study fits within Theme 1, mapping TBI care, and we are aiming for an online registry endorsed by the WFNS to understand the volume, case mix, and neurosurgical practice of patients with traumatic brain injury within the partnership of the group, but also around the world. I will just present GENOS very briefly, then Dr. David Clark will present where we are in terms of an update in more detail. So emergency surgery for TBI was recognised by the Lancet Commission, as Professor Servaday talked about, and intracranial hematoma evacuation is one of the should-do surgical procedures. GENOS aims for the first time to provide a comprehensive picture of the management and outcome of patients undergoing emergency cranial surgery after a TBI worldwide, the objective being to compare outcomes for emergency surgery between high and low Human Development Index countries. Any hospital in the world can participate, any hospital that performs emergency cranial surgery. This is a multi-center prospective observational study, and we are trying to collect 1 month of data, a consecutive 30-day period between October 2018 and October 2019. The outcome measures of 14-day mortality, return to the operating theatre during the follow-up period, length of stay in hospital, length of stay in intensive care, data on infections, and the Glasgow Coma discharge. GENOS, that David will present later, is a snapshot of 1 month of data, but we are hoping this will be a prelude to GeoTBI, which will be an international registry of traumatic brain injury. So that is theme 1. I will briefly mention the other themes that are part of the Global Neurotrauma Group. Theme 2 is understanding traumatic brain injury care. This is using a systems engineering approach to model current practice and how we could make a change in order to improve treatment and outcome. And this is being led by a member of the group, Dr. Tom Bashford, and is run with a number of partners, but predominantly through Myanmar and Yangon General Hospital. And what Theme 2 involves is identifying stakeholders and their needs, looking at the elements in a system, what are the interactions, how we can model current practice, and then how we can model a change in that practice would impact on improving outcome for patients. Theme 3 is new innovations and new technology that are appropriate to improving the management of patients, particularly system optimization, risk stratification, surgical intervention, and trying to address the challenge of long-term outcome data collection. So what are some of the technologies we're currently looking at? So if you look at the evolution of technology to investigate intracerebral hematomas, we have CT scans in hospital. Fixed CT scans have become mobile. For example, the Ceratom scanner now can be placed in an ambulance, but can we move towards more simple devices that can be used in the pre-hospital environment? For example, the infra scanner. This is something that the group is currently evaluating. We know that intracranial pressure is related to outcome from patients. It is routinely used in many centers throughout the planet, but can we actually measure intracranial pressure without having to put invasive drains or probes in the brain? And the group, Chiara Robber, has looked at using ultrasound as a non-invasive measurement of intracranial pressure. How do we do that? By measuring the optic nerve sheath diameter. And what we've shown is a good relationship between the optic nerve sheath diameter and the intracranial pressure. Ultrasound machines historically have been large and expensive, but with modern technology, the Philips Lumify, we can have a handheld, relatively cheap ultrasound scanner connected to a smartphone for its display. The UK government have also set up the Surgical Technology Evaluation Portal, STEP, collaboration between the NHS, the Brain Injury MedTech Cooperative, and the Royal College of Surgeons of England to try and create new devices in terms of technology evaluation to assist in the investigation and management of patients. And if anybody has any ideas for new technology, we will be delighted to hear from them. Finally, theme 4 is about building research capacity, output, and training. So a plan to currently map research capacity and output and address this discrepancy in terms of where brain injury is happening compared to where brain injury publications are emerging. And some examples, this is a project run out of Malaysia with Professor Vignesh Warren, who is using telemedicine to try and manage patients remote parts of Malaysia without having to transfer them to a neurosurgical unit. Other examples are the utilization of research through randomized controlled trial technologies. So this is the Rescue ASDH study, a randomized study of decompressive craniectomy versus craniotomy for acute subdural hematomas. And this has been a major international effort. It has just closed to recruitment, recruited over 460 patients. And what's fantastic about this study is the major contribution made by the lower middle income countries, such that Nimhans Hospital in Bangalore was the largest randomization of patients. I'd like to acknowledge my colleagues in Cambridge, but many people further afield, the lower middle income country partners. Also, the funders for this work, particularly the National Institute for Health Research, who have funded the group. We had a meeting in Birmingham last week looking at some of the outputs from the various groups, and the UK government are encouraged in terms of the progress of our group, and hopefully will enable us to continue, flourish, and grow more studies over the next few years. So that is globalneurotrauma.com. David will talk about it more, but please join GENOS. Please put more patients in any 30-day period between the 1st of October 2018 and the 1st of October 2019. If anybody has any questions, very happy to take them now, or please email me at pjah2@cam.ac.uk. And again, thank you to Hira for the invitation. Thank you for John for all his assistance with the technology.
Okay, thank you, Professor, for an excellent presentation. I'm John Bennett of Neurosurgical TV. I'm not a neurosurgeon, but I can comment on the technology. It's 5G wireless is obviously the direction, and I just want to show you an example. Can you see this? Let me get my cell phone. Can you see this machine here?
No, John.
Okay, hold on. Yeah, I'm just learning this technology here.
All right.
Okay, at any rate, let me see here.
Shall I come off the share screen? Would that be helpful?
You're already off the. So. He's already off the screen share.
I'm off the screen now. Yeah.
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 Okay. At any rate, let me just explain. It's they're wireless diagnostic devices. Is a wireless device that hooks to a smartphone that you can project a screen on a white wall for see webinars like this.
Yes,
and the same thing applies to imaging studies with the smartphone and the ultrasound. Those devices are going to get stronger, especially in areas of low bandwidth. That's just the one remark I want to make. And thank you, Professor.
No, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Anybody have any questions?
Anybody has any questions or comments? Yes, Professor Tariq, please.
Hi, Hutch. Just one comment. Hi. Just want to make a comment. I think it's an amazing venture which you people have got together. I've always been thinking of trying to develop a neurotrauma registry. And I think going international is the way to go. I think it will make a huge difference. And what we talk about not having papers coming out of the lower and middle income countries, I think this is going to solve a lot of problems. And I'm thankful to you and your Cambridge colleagues for that.
No, Tariq, and thank you for your tremendous support through the WFNS Neurotrauma Committee in terms of spreading the message, particularly about GNOS. It's really appreciated.
Thank you so much. Any more questions?
I have a question.
Yes, please. Introduce yourself, please.
My name is Elam. I'm a young neurosurgeon.
Yeah.
I'm an Ethiopian and currently working in Malawi, helping out a friend here. So, for example, here, we don't have a CT scan in the main hospital, but rather we have in the private setups.
Yes.
So we are two neurosurgeons here who are fully equipped with knowledge, but at some point we are actually handicapped because of the lack of the CT scan, and most of the patients wouldn't afford that. And I like the idea of this optic nerve sheet, the diameter measurement, and also you can get the infra scanner whereby it helps, at least for now, for the time being, to identify where the hematoma location is.
Yeah.
And we're trying our best, even clinically, to do decompressive craniotomies, whereby if they have any anisocoria and weakness of one extremities. But we are also interested in getting involved with this global neurosurgery data collection, at least for 1 month. But without having the CT scan, it will be a very few cases whereby we will not have adequate cases to show what our actual potential is. Because most of the time we'll just keep them admitted in the ICU for a few days and then keep them sedated and then discharge them. So how do you think we can come about with this solution for a minor, for this short period of time?
So two things. So the first is we'd be delighted to try and help you get some of these technologies. So maybe if you could email me afterwards, and we have a group meeting on Monday, and we'll see if we can get you more involved in the group.
Okay.
The second is if you are operating on patients with head and traumatic brain injury, which you are doing, even without a CT scanner, then you can still put those patients in the GNOS study.
Okay.
So you don't have to have a CT scan to go, but providing you're performing the surgery. And I think that would be really valuable data for, to know that surgery is going on without a CT scanner. But we'd be happy to help try and get some of this technology into Malawi.
Okay. We'll be very delighted because like most of the time we'll have this, we're not sure if we should go and operate on some of the cases.
Sure.
Because you might end up with just having a small contusion or on just a diffuse axonal injury. So that's the trouble that we are having. Sometimes for some of our patients, we send them for a private, but for most people here, they cannot afford having a CT scan in a private setup.
No, I
maybe $150. So, but we are working on trying to get the CT scan for the hospital, but the bureaucracy and the politics in each places. But I think if we try to get maybe the optic sheet nerve diameter access and also the infra scanner somehow may help.
It will be a start. And then to try and get the pressure to, I mean, the mobile CT scanner, the Ceratom, is very good, and it's a lot cheaper than putting in a fixed CT scanner. But I think it would be good to start with some of the more bedside technologies.
Yeah.
Please email me.
Okay, sure thing. I will email you. Thank you.
Okay, I've shared his email address in the chat box. Can we have any further? Yes, Professor Cherian.
Yeah. Hey, Tariq. Good to see you, John. All of you. So good to see you guys. One of the things that has to be really highlighted, since we are neurosurgeons, is what are the advances in neurosurgery per se not in ICU management, not in registries, not in data collection, but what is the management in surgical technique that has come over the last 100 years? How are we adapting? How are we adopting that into trauma neurosurgery? As one thing we have to highlight, because trauma is, they say trauma is emergent and the senior neurosurgeons are not. That is a sad fact. So traumas come at 2 a.m. in the morning. So it is a convenient thing that, residents all over the world, it is not a secret that it is the residents, the junior most people that is doing trauma. So it is not enough to just collect the data and see what is happening. It is also that we should press. I mean, is Franco here? We should tell
no,
people
I think he left.
and see what can be done. And that doesn't need too much of an infrastructure. I mean, for me, as far as Nepal is concerned, I'm located in one of the most poorest countries, one of the most poorest. Nepal, if you see, one of the most poorest. And I can proudly say that we probably will have more facilities than any of you sitting out there. I mean, including Adam Brooks. We have intraoperative 3 Tesla, we have everything. And this doesn't come into play with trauma. Trauma, you need just a microscope. And I mean, a CT scan and a microscope, that is all you need, and a good surgeon. So you don't need all this fancy equipment for trauma. For the last 10 years, what we have done in Nepal, we really don't need all this fancy. It just needs the correct mindset that neurosurgeons should not avoid trauma as something secondary. Anybody who says aneurysm should say trauma in the same breath, not as something else. As Professor Hutchinson said, if you look at proportionals, low and middle income countries have much more. But if you look at the absolute numbers, it's sheer. The number of head injuries in low and middle income countries, the population is 5-6 there. The population of low and middle income countries are 5-6. So we are looking at 3 times more head injuries in 5-6 of the population. So the people here, the neurosurgeons here, they will have to look at what neurosurgical advances we have to see. Now things are slowly changing. And instead of looking at, I mean, a CT scan is not very difficult in any country. CT scan is not very difficult in this era. I understand. So I'm not speaking from a very high and mighty situation. In Nepal, you must know it's how poor people are. But we can get CT scans. We can get a microscope. The WFNS will help us for that, even in some countries. So let us have the right mindset and then we'll be okay. Tariq, what do you have to say, Tariq?
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, here, are you there?
Yeah, I'm there. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Definitely, it's trauma, and I'm so glad that neurotrauma is slowly started taking back its center stage, because we all know that more than 60% of neurosurgical work is neurotrauma. And obviously we need a mindset, and yes, we have to train the juniors on neurotrauma, but it should not be left all to the trainees. These consultants have to be available, and they have to help the young neurosurgeons practice. And that is why when you discuss regarding cystonostomies, I tell everybody that first of all, you must learn microsurgical techniques to ensure that you know what you're doing, and do not learn from videos or from YouTube. Definitely, it's very important, and we have to work more to impress on people regarding neurotrauma care in theater. But also very important is the pre-hospital care, because if your patient does not arrive in time, no matter what you do, really is not going to be very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Professor Peter Hutchinson, what would you like to say about this?
No, I think that this is all good. Anything that promotes the improvement in neurotrauma care in any country is really good, including advances in surgery, advances in pre-hospital care investigation, but I think we just need to be cautious that we address, if you look at the planet, there's 7 billion people, there's 5 billion people who don't have access to any sort of decent surgical care. So we need to refine it at the top end, but we've got to try and get access to better pre-hospital care, investigations and CT scanners to those that need it.
Correct. We have a question from one of the panelists, Dr. Emika. Please go ahead.
Hi, good day, everybody.
Good day.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Please introduce yourself.
Oh, great. Yeah, my name is Emeka Nwaribe. I'm a neurosurgeon in Nigeria and also a trauma and critical care fellow here in Nigeria. I must really commend Professor Peter Hutchinson for all you're doing in neurotrauma generally and your group at the NIHR. Now, we have a very unique problem in a part of the world, like most other low and middle income countries. And that is, we have an enormous number of neurotrauma patients who come every day. In fact, last night, I'm on call, still on call at the hospital. Last night, a young man, who had suffered a traumatic severe TBI in another hospital, which is about 30 minutes to my center. Of course, before he could get to the hospital here, he had died on the road because one, we have a poor or non-existent pre-hospital setup. Sure. And that's a huge problem, very, very, very huge problem. Most of the patients come in here at the back of a motorcycle, accompanied by other people, or they come in bunched up in the back of a taxi or in the back of the police van. There's non-existent pre-hospital care. And most of the time, by the time the patient come in, hypoxia and hypovolemia have killed those patients. The one of yesterday died on arrival. We had gotten ready. They called us. We were ready for the patient by the time the patient came to us. So that's a huge problem for us. We are trying as much as possible to reach out to our governments to try to get something done at a pre-hospital setting. That is one. Again, we have very few neurosurgeons in our environment, and that's still the big problem for us. Now, currently, the society, Nigerian Academy of Neurological Societies in Nigeria, we developed a neurotrauma subcommittee, of which I'm the secretary of the subcommittee. Currently, we are also developing guidelines tailored to our peculiarities in our environment to help us, in the practice of neurosurgery. Because like most people will say, we don't have all the fancy equipment. ICP monitoring is non-existent in our environment. Very few. Once in a while, people will do ICP, and it's very expensive because people pay out of pockets. So it's very non-existent. That's why I love the idea of the non-invasive ICP monitoring. Which you have someone from Malawi mentioned, my friend from Malawi, and you promised to, send some help. Yeah. We also, the Genos part of it, yes, I'm going to also champion the course of Genos. We'll discuss this in our subcommittee and encourage as many centers as possible to key into it because it's going to be of help to us. Most people don't know the enormity. Yes, we know that there is a lot of neurotrauma in the low and middle income countries. Well, people don't have the figures. The figures out there do not represent the actual figures we have. They do not represent at all. I look at our trauma, the little registry we've tried to keep here in our trauma center. In the past 4 years, in our registry alone, in the trauma center, we see patients that come within the first 72 hours. We have over 3,000 neurotrauma patients in 4 years. That is over 1,000 a year in just one center. And that's enormous. These are the people who succeed in even coming to the hospital. I'm not talking about those who died at the site of accidents or those who are managing other little areas around us. So that is huge. So I believe that the Genos study will help us a lot, those of us in the low and middle income countries, to give the true figure of the problem we have. I know the figures play a lot of role in assistance given to the various centers. So another area we need help is we're trying to develop our own local registry. yes, I saw the registry that is out of the GNOS. It would be nice for us to adapt that, so that subsequently in subsequent studies, it will be easier to project data, to a global collection. So thank you very much, group, Professor Hutchinson and Professor Savage. He was here in Nigeria the last time we had a Hans Congress, and it was quite very helpful to us. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you for those. Thank you for those comments and for really emphasising that it's the hypoxia and hypotension that we need to address in parallel with advances in further management in the emergency department and in neurosurgery.